We now have a panel discussion with industry powerhouses. Leaders don't wait for the new normal, they build it. Rewriting the rules of new retail, that's what the focus will be on. Please welcome our first panelist, Managing Director, Reliance Brands, Darshan Mehta. He is Chairman, Retailers Association of India. A warm welcome to Bijou Kurien. He is Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer, Shoppers Stop. Please welcome Venu Nair. She is Chief Executive Officer, Pantaloons and Jaipur, Aditya Birla Group. A warm welcome to Sangeeta Pendurkar. He is Managing Director and General Manager, Adidas India. A warm welcome to Nilendra Singh. And joining us online is the owner and chairman of the Phoenix Mills Limited, Atul Ruia. And ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our most erudite moderator, Chairman, Anarock Group. Please welcome Anuj Puri. And we do have Mr. Atul Ruia online joining us. And Mr. Puri, it's over to you.
Thank you very much, and good morning to all of you. It's a delight to be here this morning. I was thoroughly enjoying Darshan, listening to you, and I was just thinking this could go on and on and on. And I was like, for the next couple of hours, I can tell you we all could have been just sitting in there enjoying the forward-thinking, the knowledgeable 8 pivots that you mentioned, and clearly, some of them are absolutely pertinent in the way that the markets have changed. Redefining the leader. I think to most of us who are in this room, it's probably the most important statement that you said is redefining the leader. Loved this thing is pre-loved fashion. It looks a lot more nicer. And then, how do you make sure that people like us in the age bracket that we are, perhaps some of them excluded, how do we continue to stay relevant in this market? I actually, prepared a full sort of speech which I'm going to give away, given that I have such an eclectic panel sitting in here. So I'm going to do away with that. Also want to welcome Atul. Atul, hi, how are you?
Fantastic.
Good. I'm not sure whether you can see us. We can see you behind on the screen. So Darshan, just continuing, just a couple of quick questions. I know we'll need to sort of wrap it up in about 30 minutes, this session. We heard the forward-looking statements that you made on the 8 pivots. I just wanted to sort of bring you back here where we are. Wanted to understand how was Diwali this year in comparison to Diwali 2019?
Thank you. So I still remember 1st October, as we are walking into the second half of the current year. I gathered together my team, and we built lots of new nice cadences thanks to the different way of working that we've gone through during COVID times. So I said, guys, 7th October is the first day of Navratri, and I believe that the next 5 months, and we put a bet and a punt on it, that the next 5 months is going to be the finest 5 months that we have seen in the last 5 years.
What are you saying?
And
wow.
As we sit today on 7th of December, okay, 2 months into that, absolutely head on. I think it's exceeded our best expectations. Multiple theories doing around, revenge, trapped, all of that, etc., But the reality is, the consumer is back, and I think if, as an industry, if we play our cards right, as I am sure we will, okay, and I have a lot of colleagues and friends here, etc., who would, this will just become the new foundation, okay, for the next five-year period. I think the 20s of the 21st century, we are in 2021 of the 21st century. I think that, so as I say, the 20s of the 21st century have begun very well, at least, the way we see it. I don't know what the experience of the other colleagues is.
Darshan, if I can just continue with you on the luxury retail segment, we've seen that it has perhaps revived the fastest post-pandemic. And, what would you say are the reasons for this quick revival of the luxury brands?
Multiple things. I mean, one obvious thing which is very, very evident, anecdotally and otherwise, is that because people are not traveling abroad, we have 6-7 million Indians who are used to traveling abroad and shopping when they are abroad. They are all.
Good point. Yes.
Although the word trapped sounds like a hostage, but for whatever it is worth. The good news is that many of them who prided to say, oh, I never shop luxury in India, are now discovering to their delight that price markups don't exist. We are virtually on par with what they buy elsewhere. They get the latest collection right from the windows to the collection side. And the icing on the cake and the cherry on the icing is basically the kind of service that they get here is absolutely unparalleled. So I believe that, of course, as we move to the next normal, whatever the next normal is, and international travel opens up, I believe that people who have now tasted the joy of shopping and luxury and high-end shopping in India ain't going back. So
nice.
So that then there's a celebratory mood also. Okay, of course, the big fat Indian wedding is back. Many of them postponed. Now we're saying it's now. Seize the moment. You don't know what holds. The next round around. So I think combination of these 4-5 factors. But there's clear evidence, and it's not just evidence. There's clear now trajectory, week on week, month on month. Okay, that the customer is spending.
Bijou, coming to you. We've seen the digitization in retail come back quite rapidly. What are some of the enhancements that you see that the retailers have done over the last 18 months?
Well, I think when you think about retail and the essence of retail, which is communicating and connecting with consumers, making sure that product is available and product is displayed and what they want is available. And the third part is in terms of payments. All of these areas, there are changes that have happened. Everybody realized stores were closed, and because stores were closed, they had to find new ways of being able to make sure that the store was made available. And so whatever form of technology it took, you might call it sophisticated things like e-commerce, you might call it something as simple as using a WhatsApp video to show the products in the store to consumers. It might be about calling and then engaging the consumer on a line. All of those ways, they tried to make sure that the store was actually made available to the consumer. The second part is, I think, in terms of everybody really understood the value of the information and the data that they had with them. True. And a lot of the retailers have terabytes of data, but they do pretty much nothing with it. And they've all began to dig deep into understanding who's buying from me. Can I get them to come back and buy again from me? What are they buying from me? Am I making sure that I have what they need? Are there some things, and we saw this last year, that in the apparel business, we suddenly saw a surge in loungewear in July and August of last year. Nobody understood why. And then you reflect back on consumers' lives, you realize why. And then, so there were several things like that were picked up as trends. And then I think between UPI, contactless payments, lots of things that we talked about earlier, several new ways of being able to actually accept payments which weren't possible in the past. And I think these are 3 key factors which most retailers are focused on in order to be able to make sure that they drive changes in their business compared to what they used to do earlier.
Which I agree with that, Bijou. Bijou, also, whilst we're saying a lot of positive stuff, there has been a severe financial impact on many of the retailers, and there has been a fair amount of consolidation that we have seen. Would you say is that with the COVID now receding, we are sort of seeing renewed strength and confidence back with the retailers, or the consolidation will still continue?
So, first of all, if you look at retail rentals, you can see rentals having increased over the last few months, certainly, and which seemingly is some reflection of the demand for retail spaces.
Atul is smiling.
So that is one thing that you're seeing, which means that there is obviously a positive approach as far as retailers are concerned. They've all been chewed in the last 18 months. Some of them have survived very well. Most of them have survived very well. They've dipped into their savings to be able to tide over. They've managed to cut the suit according to the cloth. In that sense, fashion their businesses depending on what was happening at that point of time. A lot of them have done that. There was a lot more that we think the government could have done, but unfortunately that didn't happen. Neither the banking system nor the social system allowed a lot of things to happen. But retailers today are a lot more positive, especially driven on the back of the last 3 months, which have been exceedingly good, far better than what they experienced even in 2019. And September, October, November, 3 good months have really put the wind into the sails of a lot of retailers.
Which is really nice. Bijou, you've got a huge amount of exposure, experience, and visibility of many of these retailers. I just wanted to understand, when it comes to the retail stores, has the high street done better than malls or vice versa?
Certainly high streets have done better than malls. Malls, I think, got mauled by all those closures, which happened last year, which never affected high streets. And in fact, if you ask me, between high streets and neighborhood markets, the best performers are the neighborhood markets. And after that come the high street.
High street, okay.
So even when the initial days of the lockdown happened, everybody was creeping out of their homes and, going that 1 kilometer around their homes to their neighborhood markets and picking up the essentials and coming back home. And only after a while did they venture out and get into the high streets. And malls, unfortunately, between July and October last year, it took several months for them to act fully open, and even that with restrictions. And that's the same thing which is happening today. With the new strain of the virus coming in, we are discovering that several states are enforcing regulations on entry into malls, but they're not stopping anybody from getting
which is
into
quite
a high street
unfortunate.
store. It's
Which
very
is
unfortunate.
quite contrarian as well, that you've got these malls which are much better sanitized, and the environment is a lot more better controlled, and yet the governments are coming a lot more stricter on these malls. Bijou, which of the segments has done better in retail? Apparel, footwear, F&B, lifestyle brands?
Reflective of what the lifestyle of the consumers itself was, which is stay at home, work from home. Obviously, certain kinds of apparel did better than others. So that is one part. So while apparel on the whole didn't do as well as what it used to do in the past, within that there were certain categories which obviously did better. Electronics did exceedingly well because the need to be connected between devices and connectivity and all that stuff, with everybody working from home, that did very well. Home improvement, we did pretty well, and we could see that in several categories, both from the home buyer's side, we could see that in real estate, and we could also see that in terms of home improvement. So that did fairly well too. There was this initial upsurge in terms of health foods, pharma, stuff like that, which came up in the beginning, but after the first 6 to 7 months, that kind of faded a bit.
Atul, having heard Bijou, I have a couple of questions. One is that, you're amongst the most bullish people that I have met. Your publicly listed company, the Phoenix Mills, and the plans are to double the portfolio of retail properties by financial year 2026 and add nearly 1 million square feet every year post that. So where is this confidence coming in from, Atul?
Hi, everyone. Darshan, I must say your 8 pivots have absolutely been, for me, some incredible thought coming in there, and a few key words that I'm going to take away and remember and repivot. So, Anuj, it kind of happened in 2008 as well, if you remember.
Correct.
we, after Lehman Brothers, everyone thought the world is over. And I remember doing a talk with you about 2 years ago when COVID had just begun. This is early March, in the first wave, when we locked down so early. We actually realized at that point that we are going to see another blue ocean kind of a period when this all ends. So, like Darshan said, the next 5 years to me looked golden, and we wanted to accelerate and get into that. We actually saw it. We opened the only mall, I think, in the world that opened in the smack in the middle of COVID. We opened a mall in Lucknow in July after the first wave. And actually, I'm going to say that was thanks only to the retail partners. I mean, the belief they all had. For everyone to open a store to do their fit-outs during the first wave. It was something incredible. And we see it now. I think COVID will soon be forgotten. And it's going to be 5 golden years. That's my take.
And Atul, how are the global investors viewing the Indian retail real estate?
So fabulously well. I think we have been investing into new projects, and so we have a partnership with the government of Singapore, this GIC, that's happened during COVID, and so they are looking to expand that into a REIT. They've invested into 2 projects with us, and going to be a 3rd very soon. And pretty much, I think the intent is through that platform to build 3-4 new malls. We have a partner with CPP as where they are partners with us in 5 projects now.
Wow.
In both GIC and in CPP, it's a 51, intention of 51 Phoenix, 49 with a foreign investor. CPP invested with us in our new project in Calcutta. We are expanding the Lower Parel project, which was announced about a week ago, with 1 million square feet of office and 300,000 square feet of retail. So they've invested into that. So I think we've actually made our position net zero and taken good sterling partners. But I think the appetite is humongous.
Atul, in the last 15-18 months, we've heard a lot from these IT companies and also witnessed that there has been a fair amount of reverse migration that has taken place where a number of the, largely the IT professionals, they started to work remotely and gone back to their homes in tier 2, tier 3 towns. It'll be interesting to understand, given that you opened your Lucknow mall during this COVID period, and you have position in a number of tier 2 cities. How did this influence the retail business in smaller towns where you have a good presence?
So, Anuj, we are not, so our focus remains what we call the top 10 to 12 cities to build these very large centers. And so after the first 8, I think the next 8, which is cities like Lucknow, Indore, etc. And I'm going to tell you that I'm going to take the example of Lucknow when I answer this question. We are so amazed to see that center already. It's only a year and a half. It's already hitting 1,700-1,800 per square foot trading.
Wow.
Which I think is really quite exciting. We see brands. To take an example, this Sunday I was interacting with the team. Van Heusen as a brand did a cohort from a 1,800 square foot store. We were really happy with that. And many of our large stores, similar store in other cities, are not trading at that kind of density. So it was, and Starbucks, or you just go out, you list out, and there are many brands which are shocking me individually, and I track this every weekend with their remarkable space sales. We're seeing the same trend in Indore, and it's really also about having all the right brands, the right partners in the whole center. And once you are that, if you see Lucknow, there's not a single other center which has 350, 400 stores. and which has the kind of representation across all categories, from what I would call luxury, all of Darshan's brands, and going all the way to the hypermarket. So it's, and of course, very well represented jewelry, very well represented entertainment, very well represented across categories. So I think that it just makes it a one single hub for that city. And that model for me is the game changer. That's where you end up becoming that number one center. And I think these are all going to be trading at 3,000-4,000 rupees a square foot.
Wow. And Atul, finally, when I met up with you a couple of weeks ago, we discussed that let no crisis go waste. What would you say are the learnings or some of the fundamental changes that you're going to make in your business given what has happened in the last 18 months? One is, I asked Atul, I said, Atul, when can we meet in office? He said, never. I said, what do you mean never? He said, I am not coming back to the office at all. I am not going to be in the office ever. Is that correct, really, Atul?
Well, I haven't yet been back to office, but that's not for any other reason, but I'm just so comfortable and I'm so much more efficient working where I am. But this is office, so. But yes, thank you for asking me this question about the learnings, Anuj. I'm very excited to answer this. I think for us, I'll be candid, when COVID happened, I went into a mini depression, at least my wife and kids say so. And it took me some effort to come out of it. And what really got me back was focusing on this very question, that what's next, how do we reinvent, what is the future? So I think we accelerated into the future ourselves. And I think Darshan used a fantastic term, urban escape. I believe that if you don't transition into an urban escape rather than just a shopping center, there's very little hope. So all our new builds, and we are building 7 or 8 very large shopping centers as we speak, 4 of which will open this year. So we actually transitioned completely into experiences and making that park, that something that, that beach, as Darshan said, coining that term, urban escape was a magical thing. That's the direction we go. The other headline I am going to say is there is a new anchor in town. And that new anchor is not the department store only. The department store is very important, the cinema is very important. But for us, the new anchor is the convention center. We are adding convention centers.
Interesting. Wow.
We think the next, so in the new anchor is the 5-star luxury hotel. We are adding a Grand Hyatt at our Bangalore mall. The new anchor is 3-4 million square feet of office complementing the retail. So we are in all our centers, including, as I just mentioned, Lower Parel, where we are adding 1 million square feet of new office. At our Mall of Asia project in Bangalore, there is 4 million square feet of office and 6,000 homes as a part of that larger development. Not that we are building, I should clarify, L&T is building a lot of it, we are building some of it. So it's these are the new anchors, I think, and of course that I remain committed to building 15, 17 screen cinemas. I'm planning to break down my cinema in Bangalore, which is an 8-screen cinema, and make it into a 14 or 15 screen cinema. And I'm still pushing that crazy idea forward. So these are your, so I think, and one more, we are expanding our center. So in Lower Parel, it was a 700,000-800,000 square feet center. We are now making it 1.3, 1.4 million square feet. So it's actually investing back, making these the ultimate destinations.
Pretty interesting, Atul. Pretty interesting. Venu, coming to you, as a Shopper Stop, your company has some real aggressive growth plans, to sort of aiming to double the revenue over the next 3 or 4 years. taking the learnings, what Atul said and what Bijou and Darshan said is from COVID, what will be the pillars of your growth strategy in future?
Thanks, Anuj. I think there have been, we live in interesting times, and I think it's as exciting as ever. And the old cliche of change is the only constant, and learning from all of that. But at the same time, also building on what we have and what has been generated over years. As we all know, Shoppers Stop is the icon of retail in India. It is one of the most loved brands, most well-recognized brands. And we are a house of brands, and that's what we have been, and that's the foundation on which the business has been built. Along with that, we are blessed with having over 8 million loyal First Citizen customers. We are one of the only programs in the country which is a paid loyalty program, which also means that we get loyal customers who are joining us and being a part of the program because they want to, not because it's being offered
Correct.
free of cost. And leveraging the availability of data now makes that ever more powerful. So building on that foundation of being a house of brands, the great partnership that we have with both national and international brands, some of Darshan's brands, brands from the house of Madura, and so on and so forth. Building on that, but also then on our own pillars, and the key pillars, and the biggest shift, biggest change for us that COVID brought in was, of course, the shift to omni-channel. I think all retailers have used the word omni-channel in the past, but to make it truly happen, and I think we were all awakened by COVID and the necessity that brought in. And omni-channel in its true sense, where the customer makes a choice of where she wants to
Absolutely.
shop
Yes.
at any point in
Yes.
time. I mean, today, every single store of ours, all of our department stores, the 80 plus department stores, the 150 plus beauty doors that we have, every single store of ours, every single SKU of ours is now linked on shopperstop.com. So the customer is able to shop at any point in time that they need. And of course, going beyond with our brand partners to also being linking beyond that in terms of what's not only in our stores, but also within their DCs and so on and so forth. So giving the customer the choice to being able to shop in our stores physically or on shopperstop.com, and that truly omni-channel experience. So that's the first pillar on which the business is growing. The second one is beauty. And we are the leaders. We are the largest retailer on physical retail. We have been for a long time with our partnerships that we have with Estee Lauder and a number of other brands, both international and national. And growing that further. And as we grow that, in the last 90 days, we bought 60 new brands of beauty into Shoppers Stop. Some online, some physical, and some both. And also expanding that further in terms of having our own beauty doors. We have 2 of them in the form of Arcelia. We are expanding that further. And we intend to add between 15 to 20 beauty doors every year as we go forward. That's the second pillar. The third one, and this is our own private brands, and complementing the national and international brands that we have, and catering to specific lifestyle needs, having a sharp laser focus in terms of what the brand stands for, and creating brands which will suffice the need. Again, as a retailer, as a department store, our job is to bring curated, latest trends for our customers. And that's what we do through our own private brands, along with our national and international brands. And as we do with our private brands, making it sharp in terms of fashion, making it sharp in terms of price, but most importantly, having newness every single month and every second week as far as possible. And that's the differentiating factor when it comes to our own private labels. And fourth, I think not to forget the size of the country and physical expansion. And I see the next 15, 20 years where retail will continue to expand physically in India. So even as omni-channel sales grow, there is enough and more room for physical retail to grow. And a simple fact, I mean, today, 29% of retail is organized. which means a large majority is still unorganized. And the opportunity for all of us is to reach closer to the consumer as that shift happens. And that's what I think pretty much all of us sitting in this room represent organized retail. And that's really where the opportunity is. So physical retail, private brand, beauty, omni-channel would be the pillars on the foundation of the house of brands that we are.
And you know, it's interesting that you bring beauty up there. You know, digital, physical, you know, curating the product for the customer, and you're bringing beauty up there. And Darshan, to your point, one of the pivots, and it's the first time that I heard you said, is that beauty is not being passed from the previous generation to us. It's the first time that beauty is actually coming in our generation. Beauty and skin. I think those were the two words that you actually put up. And, you know, it is true that, you know, our previous generation, you know, certainly wasn't in that is. And today, if you were to look at it, you know, it is really beauty and skin as the primary initiatives.
I think if you can create scale in advisory, okay, you have again hit the holy grail. Very often I say supply creates a demand in this country.
Correct.
But in this particular case, because it's, as you rightly said, it's not a generational thing, it is a first generation thing. And I don't want to take more time, but in absolute terms, not per capita terms, we are 1/6 of the Thailand market. I'm not comparing with Korea,
What
I'm
are
not
you
comparing
saying?
with China.
Wow.
India in absolute terms is 16-17% of Thailand's consumption. So you can all imagine the headroom for growth. So first you create scale and beauty advisory, then you create customer access, both to product and product to the customer. If you manage these two, you've got the next big thing happening.
No wonder Nykaa has done the
I was
exceptional.
about to say, before we stray into Nykaa's valuation, let's
You're continuing with you, Venu. You know, during the pandemic, you know, the landlords and the occupiers really worked together, and it was a pleasure. And there was a sort of alibi, some momentary pressure that you could see, but otherwise, you know, the collaboration really worked very well. Do you see any changes in the contracts between the occupiers and the landlords?
I think the key point was the way the industry came together.
Which was brilliant.
I mean, it was
Very,
absolutely
very nice.
fantastic.
Yes.
And if we were to stick to contracts, I think it would have been a lot tougher. And I think that just speaks for itself. The fact that across the industry, whether it was developers, small owners, retailers, brands, coming together, working together, and putting workable solutions in place so that it was a win-win. Everyone shared the pain. Of course, there was pain. Everyone shared the pain. I think everyone's looked into the definition of force majeure a lot more. And the definition of force majeure has probably been scanned in the Oxford Dictionary by retailers and brands a lot more than what it was. But I think contracts, and they'll continue to have their own place. But the way the industry reacted, and I think that just gives a blueprint of how the industry would work together in the time of a crisis.
Yeah, and it is so true. When what you're saying is that if we were to, you know, open the drawers and pull the contract and start reading the contract, you know, it would have been a kamikaze situation. And, you know, there was a huge amount of collaboration, cooperation between both the occupiers and the landlords to work through that. In the interest of time, Sangeeta, I'm going to come to you. A couple of questions. You know, Pantaloon has been on a transformational journey, you know, over the last 3 or 4 years, and you've really beautifully pivoted your business. So in the post-COVID world, you know, where do you see sort of Pantaloon's work? And is the omni-channel going to be a big contributor towards that?
Sure. So thank you, Anuj, and good afternoon, almost everybody, and a pleasure to be here. I'm just going to give you a little bit of a context on Pantaloons. Of course, we know it's one of the first brands that brought large format department stores to India, and a lot of consumers recall that this is the first format that I shopped in. As I kind of came on board, the mandate to me was going back to Darshan's slide on relevance, the mandate was to say, how do we become more relevant to our consumers? And at some stage, we redefined our consumer segment, redefined the space in which we wanted to play. And there were many pillars of our strategy, and I'm just providing that as a context to saying our merchandising has to be more befitting for the taste of the local youth. How do we kind of redefine our brand? And as I keep saying, in having worked in 4 other sectors before this one and 5 different organizations, the definition of brand here is very different. The brand here actually comes to life in the store. Your store is the brand. And irrespective of what you say in advertising, it actually comes to life there. So we redefined our brand storytelling, our brand positioning. Today, we opened, in fact, one of the first new design stores in Atul's mall in Parel, in Phoenix, Parel, and a lot of our stores are on a new look. We reset our supply chain processes to make our merchandise more relevant, and all of this was a cultural shift for the organization. And it required us to embed customer centricity. It required us to embed a culture of collaboration, a culture of experimenting without fear. And that was the journey that we were on pre-pandemic. Came the pandemic, and the world changed. I think, however, the journey that we were on actually in many ways helped us soften the blow of the pandemic, in the sense that because we had the cultural software embedded into the organization, our ability to respond with agility, I think, was terrific. And it was absolutely delightful to see that projects which otherwise would have taken 12 months, 15 months, actually people completed in weeks, right? And we used, going back to what you were saying, never let a crisis go waste. I remember May 8th last year, we actually set out a big agenda, created a rallying cry around converting this crisis into an advantage. And we set a full agenda on how we're going to reset our business. And we did several things, from developing multiple business models that came into fore in just a matter of 3 months. So within a month, we had the capability of putting up a virtual chat shop in our stores. In another month, we kind of set up ability to have pop-up stores across the country in various societies.
Very nice.
We had vans running in many stores, going again to streets and societies. And we built omni-channel capability. So I think that was a huge exercise, but the big engine was the cultural mindset and the growth mindset that we had established in the organization. And coming to your specific question on Omni, I think Omni is here to stay, as we all know. It no longer is a good to have. And in normal scheme of things, we were thinking of Omni maybe only by next year.
Yeah.
Very delighted to share that, about 200 of our 350 stores today are Omni-enabled. And the alternate channels and e-commerce business, from being less than 1% of our sales, is now a very significant and a growing part, fastest growing part of our business. I think just 3-4 things. While Omni is here to stay, it's also a very valuable business. Our own internal data, and again, like Venu mentioned, we have a very large base of loyalty members, about 14 million, one of the largest in the country. And we have now some fantastic analytics capability. Consumers who shop in Omni actually shop about 40% more than single-channel consumers. And they shop far more frequently than those. So it's a very valuable channel. It comes with its own challenges. Many people mistake multi-channel for Omni, but the true integration of the customer experience, of your inventory, of your supply chain, I think is what you need. And therefore, the investments in tech architecture, revisiting that, building very strong data analytics capability, I think becomes critical. But more importantly, rewiring the organization and the organization structure, because now teams have to have one view of the customer. And therefore, to work holistically, I think, becomes very important. So we feel we've laid a very solid foundation. From here on, our journey on omni-channel is going to be that of good to great.
And, I know we are going to run out of time, but, I do want to ask this question. You're the
Sure.
only woman on the panel. I also read that you're the first woman CEO of the Aditya Birla Group. First woman CEO of the Aditya Birla Group. And I'm a big believer in D&I in this. So every organization has their sort of agenda, and they go through the journey. I do want to ask you is that how has it been to be a woman leader?
So, 33 years of career. I feel on this panel exactly the way I felt when I started my career. I used to be the only woman in many meetings and many conferences. But I think I've had some fantastic, very, very supportive bosses, 17 of them. And I think my current boss is the best that I have had in my career, but blessed with very many. I think organizations, obviously this is a big area of focus and every organization understands. The reason for it, there's a business case to diversity, it's not just a good to have.
There is, yes.
And many people also mistake diversity just for gender diversity, right? So my submission is, as a starting point, for me, again, it goes back. I was sitting and smiling looking at Darshan's presentation because it covered a lot of what I had kind of jotted down. For me, inclusion comes before diversity. And inclusion is a necessary condition for diversity. If you are of an open mindset or accepting of others' ideas, you will automatically fuel diversity and a broader level of diversity.
Very nice.
Right? Across, whether it's LGBT, whether it's, the people who need greater support from, not the physically handicapped, but very other ethnicities, etc. So I think, for me, that's the first bit. And many organizations approach it the other way, put more women, which I think sometimes is unfair to the men. So that's the first point. Second, I think if there's a business case to diversity, then we should have clear metrics that we should be holding, corporates should be holding themselves accountable for. It should be published in your annual results. And there are metrics not just in terms of percentage of women, but with the equality of salary and across different diverse groups, not just gender. The third thing I feel is that, creating the right environment, which is about policies, etc., which is what organizations do. But I think they should not be one-sided. They should be balanced between men and women, is my third point. And lastly, I think the role that we play. You asked this question of me because I'm the only woman on the panel, but I think equally everybody sitting here on this panel and here is equally accountable for driving diversity, right? In fact, as people of society, the way we bring up our sons and our daughters is different,
right. Yes.
right?
Yes.
And it starts there. It's what I call the bats and dolls story, right? Why are girls always supposed to play with dolls? So I think if we really want this economy to thrive, the way we bring up our children, the way we influence people around us and create a more diverse and inclusive environment in our homes, it starts with that, so that we see more of that in the organizations.
Brilliant, absolutely. And it does make a meaningful business sense as well.
Oh yeah,
to bring
absolutely.
in inclusion. And
I mean, that's proven in literature that, countries which have more women in their workforce do much, much better. So that's an established business case.
Finally, Neil, as I was walking in, I had my tie on. And I was walking in, and one of my colleagues, Pankaj here, he said, Mr. Puri, take off your tie. I said, why? He said, because Neil is going to be on your panel. And he said as well, you should actually be wearing sports shoes, because that's the new fashion. He told me, he said, beneath these suits, you have to wear, sports shoes. That's more comfortable. That's more fashionable today. And I really wanted to ask you, he did take off my tie, but I didn't have the guts to wear the sports shoes. But is that true?
Yeah, it is true. And therefore, next time, let's do this. Let's wear white sneakers with your suit.
Oh, wow. I mean, you need to have guts to take that, carry that.
I'll walk next to you.
Neil, my first question, and I've only got two. The first one is, I do feel is that post the pandemic, people have become a lot more health conscious.
Sure.
And I do want to understand is how your business is performing given that. But on the other hand, we've seen that many of the sporting events have got cancelled. So how have you really managed the marketing activities during this period? On one side, we're saying is that we've become a lot more health conscious, and on another side, a lot of the sporting events are being pushed forward or getting cancelled.
True. So great question. And this is true that when COVID hit us, sport almost stopped across the globe. So, and this was a setback, because sport does inspire us to not only get healthy, but also starts conversation, starts the business of sport, and therefore there was a setback. However, I guess like everybody pivoted, we pivoted as well. COVID also ushered in a completely new dimension of working out from home, fitness at home. And therefore, I remember last year, somewhere by May, we had understood that the best part to engage with the consumers would be to engage at home and leverage our let's say, athletes to do fitness sessions at home. So it's eventually turned out to be extremely engaging. We encourage all our running community members or our athletes that we sponsor to hold these 90 minutes or 60-minute sessions. And therefore, we ended up doing more than 250 sessions by the end of the year. So that's one interesting, let's say, aspect of staying healthy, which is not outdoor sport, but at least doing sport within the household. The other thing that happened literally immediately after we started opening up was that we started getting people to run at least. So if it's not mainstream sport, at least we could encourage a small community of people to start running and taking
Very effectively, huh? You did a great job on that.
Exactly, and I guess digital helped. So reaching out socially to our consumers at home and then engaging them on the running app and making sure the entire, let's say, the experience of running in a community is linked to the app worked out pretty well.
My second and final question is, Neil, what's your strategy to combat brands, which have sort of very large format mega stores and, are offering products for price-conscious consumers? What's the strategy to be able to combat, these mega stores?
Well, I guess this is a great question again. I believe first of all, they're complementary. I personally believe that as we recruit more consumers into sport, it will only going to benefit us over a period of time. So if you were to look at India of, let's say, 10 years ago, if you wanted to buy a pair of skipping ropes or buy dumbbells or buy a bike, where would you go? There was no place to go, actually, frankly. But today, or if you decide to go for a trek and you want to buy a backpack, there's no place to go. But today, you have a friend in Decathlon, and you can essentially go there and buy your basic sport needs. And therefore, I believe as players and brands like Decathlon recruit more people into sport, these consumers will only upgrade into mainstream brands like ours. So therefore, it's, I think, extremely complementary. And the more people play and engage and buy sport, the better it gets.
And one thing that I have learned is on this panel and through the last 18 months is that the world is becoming a lot more collaborative, a lot more friendlier, in my view, and a lot more relaxed as well, Neil. People like me have taken off their ties. So it must be feeling a lot more relaxed, a lot more positive, huge amount of learnings on this panel, a lot of positivity. And I love, Darshan, what you said is that the next 5 years is going to be a complete game changer. And the views that all of us have had is very positive. I reiterate, let no crisis go waste. Let's not make the same mistakes that we've made in the past. Let the same old inefficiencies not seep in to our businesses. It'll be a great time and hopefully a great future going forward. With this, thank all the panelists. Do appreciate your time. Sorry, we're a little bit above the time. I do want to thank Mapic for putting this together. I think as Darshan said at the start is that, to put this face-to-face together and being able to get in a huge amount of crowd, big round of applause to Mapic and the team who worked so hard to be able to deliver this. Thank you very much.